Hello people of the internet, it's Amanda, and if you're new on my channel, I usually talk about Japanese movies, dramas, entertainment. Sometimes I tap into other Asian pop culture topics as well, and for today's video, we're here to talk about Cinderella Closet. Now, I've been meaning to make a review of this series as soon as it wrapped up, but it wrapped up a couple of days ago. I think it was supposed to wrap up over a week ago, but the new episode dropped on a Wednesday, which is its usual schedule. No subtitles for some reason, and then it took a couple of days, and then after a week later, that's when it dropped the final episode with subtitles. So I'm not exactly sure what happened there. But yeah, this video was due for more than a week now. But yeah, I've been watching this series episode per episode. I just was looking for new stuff to watch on Netflix, ended up clicking on it. Really enjoyed the first episode, and then from there I was watching it week per week. I've been seeing a lot of people kind of enjoying the series as well. A lot of edits on TikTok, comments on Twitter, X, whatever you call that platform nowadays. But yeah, and I don't know, overall I've been seeing really just fun responses regarding this drama. Even Netflix Philippines, who usually are bigger in terms of promoting K-dramas, have been posting a lot about this, possibly because of the positive responses that people are giving it. But yeah, overall, I do have some particular thoughts about the series that I want to talk about. If you haven't seen it yet, then maybe this can convince you to check it out. If you've watched it and just looking for a place to kind of hang out and chill and debrief about the series, then this is probably the place for you. Again, my treatment when it comes to these videos is, as much as I'm reviewing them based off of how I perceive it, overall what I consider is entertainment value over pretty much anything else. So yeah, if you're into that, then please keep on watching. Now let's start off with the cast first. So there's Haruka, played by Osaki Ichika. There's Kamiyama Hikaru, played by Matsumoto Leo. And there's Hachimura Rintaro playing Kurotaki Keisuke. Other supporting roles include Mito Yuna playing Suzuki Mio, and Karuma playing Kiriya Shu, and some other, characters here as well. But these are kind of the main people appearing in the series. Usually have very complicated relationships when it comes to Cinderella stories or these kind of transformation stories, simply because when I was growing up, I was the poster child for the before whenever they do these types of stories, and that kind of contributed a lot in terms of how my relationship was with myself, growing up. It's not like I hated these types of movies and dramas, nor did I completely like them, but it kind of just added into my own journey of self-love, self-discovery, all that. Because again, growing up, I had braces on, I had glasses on, and usually you see these kinds of shows and they kind of portray that as a before, and how these characters have a lot of issues in terms of how they accept and love themselves unless they switch things up. Obviously, that's not the case anymore. I mean, I obviously love my glasses, and I've always embraced them as part of just my overall aesthetic overall as a person. But again, that kind of relationship with that type of media and what that perpetuates is usually something that I, again, have a very complicated relationship with. Now, jumping into Cinderella Closet, what's interesting to me as soon as I watched the first episode is our main character, Haruka. She's not exactly, she didn't fit that entire mold of the stereotypical kind of before look. She doesn't have glasses, she doesn't have braces on or whatever. She's actually a really cute, pretty girl. And I thought that what they're gonna do is have her have this particular complex of, because she's taller than some girls or whatever obnoxious reason people make up when it comes to these stories. just to make it seem like the main character is quote unquote undesirable. But that's not the case at all. We see this girl coming from the countryside. She has like a checklist of what she wants to do when she goes to college in Tokyo. But then fast forward to like present day, and she hasn't really achieved that because but she's really happy and kind and, very bubbly, but she's working a part-time job, so she hasn't been able to like tick off some of those boxes of hanging out with friends at a pretty cafe because she's just practical. But at the same time, she has that desire to want to be cute or want to look pretty for a guy she likes, which again, to me, usually when it comes to these stories, they villainize these traits as you shouldn't be like that because if you're this, then therefore you're not pretty or you're not living your best strong woman self. And to me, like, that is just crappy storytelling. You can be everything. Um, you can be everything, that you want to, as long as it's kind of like what you desire and who you desire to be. And I really like that in the first episode they already established that Haruka wanted to look cute for Kurotaki, who is her crush at work, but generally, like, what she wants to gain is this confidence in herself to be a little bit more, to feel good about herself. It's not like she feels like she's ugly or whatever. She's just not confident in terms of how she wants to do her makeup. She doesn't really know how, and that's particularly valid because even people who do their own makeup still have a lot to like learn and explore in reality. And it's just like this very fun and also very real approach to girlhood. In a sense, they're not trying to put down her character in any way, and it's just her kind of like revisiting all those desires that she had to like step back from a little bit because she was prioritizing other things. And I really like that, and that's the reason why I kind of like stayed through like the first couple of minutes, is seeing this main character not being villainized in any way, in the way that she desires to be more girly or whatever. And even herself, like, she's not considering herself less girly or not like other girls, in just the way that she does things. It's just that it was just not her. And yeah, and they weren't like making it seem like either thing was bad. And then she kind of like bumps into this very gorgeous fashionista, um and she expresses desire of, I want to be like you're just so beautiful. And she sees this other person and she was just awestruck, and that's kind of like their first interaction. And then suddenly she was kind of like looking through, makeup aisles, like excited about this date that she secured with her crush. And she bumps into this very beautiful person yet again, Hikaru. And Hikaru kind of like just like it's this kind of like cute, again, like how it is with girlhood. And I think women in general can relate to this, that if we see someone kind of like struggling in terms of what shade of lipstick fits them, or even in store where we're kind of like just swatching, it's kind of like a very general girlhood experience of wanting to help this other person out and bonding over these things. And that's kind of like sort of what happened with Haruka's initiation. Hikaru was kind of like hesitant at first because he was just busy overall, but he just couldn't leave her. And yeah, and as you've been getting from how I'm explaining this, Hikaru is indeed a guy and loves beautiful things, and that's a reason why he dresses as a girl. There are days he explains that he dresses as a guy as well, but most of the days he just feels confident in expressing himself dressed in like a wig, makeup, all these things. And in this first episode, we already established like who these characters are, and I think that's the main appeal of this. Is it kind of like, again, as I mentioned, this is such a girlhood experience of sharing these things with a stranger. But at the same time, we see Hikaru here, who he isn't he it's mostly like him expressing himself in this way and being blatantly upfront that he's a guy, he likes girls, but he absolutely loves beautiful things, and that's a reason why he has appreciation and preference into, makeup and all these things, in contrast to Haruka, who again is a girl who loves guys but isn't into these things, and it already redefines how we define, masculine and feminine traits and preferences, and it just all boils down to who you are and how you want your confidence to exude. And the way that Hikaru kind of like played godmother with Haruka in the first episode, it wasn't like he drastically changed how she looks. It was just her looking and feeling more confident in herself. But she's a pretty girl. He just kind of like helped her feel that. And again, even in the first couple of episodes, Hikaru kept on insisting that the reason why kind of like Haruka is ugly, it's not really because of her physical appearance, but it was more so of always having this very unsure sense of self, and how, like you have to see what other people is seeing in you. So you have to feel that in order to feel beautiful and to exude that level of beauty that you want to achieve. And it's the same with Hikaru. Like, I know that the story didn't really dive deep into, we see Hikaru in an environment that is very accepting of who he is, but we also get a small sense of, with his family and how he's in the outs with them because of his choice of self-expression. But again, in his character in himself, he opens up about, it's not always easy that he likes this, but at the end of the day, he's gained enough confidence to just do this for himself and not for anyone else. And when he was kind of like trying to constantly dress up as a guy, because of, he wants Haruka to see him as a guy rather than a bestie, Haruka was like, it's not about like how you dress or how you present yourself there. It's more of like, I like you because it's you. You're my friend. You're someone I hold special because it's you. And that's the overall kind of like vibe of this series. It's mostly about seeing the other person and liking the other person beyond anything else, rather other than like who they are. And I think that's what makes this very heartwarming in a sense. In terms of like the other characters, what's interesting is they tried the cliffhanger pull in like midway to create like conflicts at the end of it, so you look forward to the next episode. But it's gotten tired in a sense that you realize that there's no villain in this story at all, which I personally enjoyed. Like the storyline with Kurotaki, the storyline with Mirin coming in, and they have this kind of like, they were exes, but they're like meeting each other again, and you think that it's that. I was honestly kind of like was prepared to be pissed if they made Mirin into a villain, because I'm so tired of stories kind of like, pitting girls against girls. Again, it's such a tired narrative in stories, but they created this in a sense that, again, there's this girlhood bond between Mirin and Haruka as well, and they became really good friends. And even with Kurotaki and Mirin's storyline, it wasn't like they were picking up right where they left off. Kurotaki was just genuinely a nice guy. And they were pointing it out that sometimes being a genuinely, like a completely nice person to the point that you're so naive about people's feelings can also be a negative thing. And I like the way that they created these characters without having, like, you can create conflict and you can create kind of like stories that build around friendship and love without putting down anyone. And they did such a good job in that. I think, again, the only issue that personally for me wasn't really an issue, but it was more of like, I wasn't worried about where the story is going, simply because each and every cliffhanger that they do at the end of each episode, I know that they're not going to villainize everyone. They just made it seem like so. And I like that at the end of it, Kurotaki, Mirin, um, and even Shu, they were all like just genuinely good people. And in a story where it's about self-discovery and self-love, we don't need to have too many other complications about the narrative because, again, there's already so much villainizing the idea of wanting to improve yourself. And what I mean by that is we've already experienced a lot of stories talking about, like, for example, especially in Western media, where if you start choosing to dress differently or to like do a makeover so that your hair is a lot more straighter or you're not wearing glasses anymore, someone, whether it's your circle of friends or whoever, is gonna point out that you've changed your face and now you've changed your personality. And sometimes that kind of like villainizes the idea of just wanting to feel more confident and beautiful in yourself. And that also, like, the idea of wanting to improve doesn't negate the fact that you've loved yourself prior to that, but there's always kind of like room to improve. And if it's something that you desire as a person, you feel like that would empower you even more. It doesn't mean that you're expecting it from other people that they should do this, whatever. You're doing it more for yourself. And I think this series and a lot of like other shows nowadays kind of capture that of, of at the end of the day, like, as long as you're not forcing the same standards to other people, and as long as you appreciate yourself for who you are and you're doing it not because you want to be perceived differently, but because you want that to somehow come along eventually when you start accepting yourself more, then that's fine. And I think this drama perfectly kind of like captures that. And again, along with like the cute love story in between and all that. But at the end of the day, I think Haruka is just like Haruka is just such a refreshing character. I think Osaki Ichika is just so adorable in this role. And Matsumoto Leo also did such a good job in terms of switching between the personas of, like kind of like showing the kind of the complexity of Hikaru's character. Again, like if you want to be a bit more technical about it, there's definitely room to improve in terms of, acting or whatever, but it is a love story at the end of the day. I am more critical when it comes to more drama heavy narratives, and the acting is just subpar when it comes to the narrative they're trying to deliver. But for something as lighthearted as this, I feel like they did just fine. It adds to kind of like the rawness and just the fun of it overall. 20 minutes per episode, not bad when it comes to delivering the story, building up, and usually I'm not particularly fond of overly cheesy love stories anymore. But I like how they built the friendship between Haruka and Hikaru first, and even with Kurotaki and Mirin as well, and that kind of like, and even the friendship with like Shu, and how he likes Hikaru as well. It's more of like whether or not he likes Hikaru dressed as a girl or a guy doesn't matter to him. He likes Hikaru as a person. And I think that's overall what I love about this is even with the moment where Haruka was feeling a bit jealous when it comes to Shu, it was more so both in a romantic and also a friendship level. And it's not with anything that has to do with like their sexual preferences or anything like that. It's kind of like that jealousy that you feel when it comes to dealing with someone that you care about, and they do really tackle whether or not it was because of, again, sexuality or anything. They just perceive people as people. And again, overall, in real life is a bit more complicated than that, again, with sexuality, gender expression, and all that. But this series kind of like puts it into the perspective of, at the end of the day, love is between people, whether or not like it's more so like, yes, outside, like how they express themselves, but also who they are on the inside. And sometimes we over like we kind of like overcomplicate things in wanting to label them, and there's nothing wrong with labeling things and wanting to belong in a certain community and whatever, but the world would probably be a less complicated place if we just focus on wanting to express ourselves the way that we feel the most beautiful, the most the most confident in, and we love people for their entirety and not just all these different things, and that would be better. Again, this series is very idealistic of that, and that's why it's really refreshing. And I think a lot of J-dramas have also tried to share this same narrative of not really labeling a lot of things, but rather focusing on the relationships and the people and who they are to their core. And in an ideal world, again, it is something that is for us to like desire. But yeah, like overall, again, as a series in itself, I don't think that it was meant to kind of like dive deep into that, but it was able to kind of like accomplish that messaging overall with just such a simple and beautiful narrative. And it might not be for everybody. Again, some people might find it a bit too cheesy, too predictable and anything like that, but to me sometimes we just need something like that, something that's easy to watch. And I think Cinderella Closet is something that is definitely easy to watch. And yeah, and overall I highly recommend this drama. I love that a lot of people are enjoying it. Tell me down in the comments below, what are your thoughts about this series, or have you watched it? I know that it's based off of a manga. I haven't read that, but if you've read it, what are your thoughts? Comparison, is it like a good adaptation? Whatever. But anyways, so if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon in a new video. Bye!